So a couple days ago, we got the news that an arrest was made of one of the top Trump executives because there was tax fraud going on at the organization. Now, when I read the headlines, I was like, oh, shit, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. Because I do think they have quite a bit of dirt on him when it comes to his business practices. I don't think that this is like Russiagate, for example, where it was mostly bullshit. And they couldn't really get anything on Russia specifically. But when it comes to run-of-the-mill corruption, when it comes to tax fraud or insurance fraud or any of a number of financial crimes, I think there's smoke and there's fire there. So I read the headlines, I was excited. But then when I read the details, I was a little underwhelmed as to what they had so far, or at least what's being released so far. So here's a CNN segment talking about the Trump Organization tax fraud. Let's watch and then I'll break it down.
Now to the extraordinary charges against former President Trump's organization and its top executive. Now, prosecutors accuse the company and its chief financial officer of a 15-year tax scheme. Now, at the heart of it all, investigators say the company's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, evaded taxes on nearly $2 million of income. That income, they say, was in the form of rent and utilities and other payments that went completely untaxed. Now, the former president's son, Eric Trump, who also serves as the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, tried to downplay the charges. This was his framing.
Well, these are employment perks. These are a corporate car, which everybody has. I guarantee you there's people on this network that have corporate cars. I guarantee you there's people in every company in the country that have corporate vehicles. This is what they're going after. This isn't a criminal matter.
Joining me now, staff writer for The Atlantic, David Frum, former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams. Elliot, so they're acknowledging it.
Yes.
And I think President Trump did something similar in the statement that he put out here. They're saying it's not a criminal matter. These are just perks. You're a lawyer. What's your take on that?
Okay, well, first, my take is don't confess to a federal crime on national television. I would advise you not to do that, anybody, if you're listening. So, yes, these are perks. Company cars are perks. Your gym is a perk. Your parking pass is a perk. You just got to pay taxes on it when it's income. Now, there's a little bit of complexity as to the corporate car question, because mileage over when you're just driving for your personal benefit versus mileage when you're driving for work is taxed a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, you have to pay taxes on them. And Alan Weisselberg, you're talking about $1.76 million in untaxed income. That is a serious amount. It is unlawful. It brings liability to both the company and the individual, and it's serious stuff. And he's downplaying it.
Yeah.
All right, so as of the stuff that they have right now, and they just ran through it there, I am underwhelmed by this because, I look at that and I'm like, you had all this time, and I'm sure there's so much evidence out there, and this is the strongest case that you could make. Now, here's the thing, though. We really don't know. We really don't know all of the stuff they have yet. I think things might keep coming out in a drip, drip, drip kind of fashion. And here's another theory, by the way, and this one I think is important to note. It may be the case that they threatened, one of Trump's top executives, Alan Weisselberg. They threatened him, and they're trying to get him to flip on Trump because he knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows everything that went on with the finances for the Trump Organization, probably even better than Trump does. So they threatened Weisselberg with this sort of stuff. Getting him on these tax fraud charges, which are sort of minor in the grand scheme of things, but they pressured him with this to try to get him to flip on Trump. Now, the fact that he was taken out in handcuffs leads me to believe he actually hasn't flipped on Trump. He hasn't flipped on Trump, which would tell me that perhaps they really can't build a solid enough case without Alan if he doesn't cooperate. And he's not cooperating, at least not yet. So in a weird way, this story has the potential to be good for the Trump family, because if he doesn't flip, then they probably can't get enough evidence, and he might skate on everything. And Weisselberg might go down just for this specific issue, which isn't as broad or as damning and wide-reaching as it potentially could be. Now, having said all that, that's one theory. The outlet Just Security is saying this, quote, New York State fraud, conspiracy, and grand larceny statutes are at play here as well. Double bookkeeping, deceptive bookkeeping, and fraudulent mischaracterization of employee compensation, and they say this is all coming. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. New York State fraud, conspiracy, and grand larceny, double bookkeeping, deceptive bookkeeping, fraudulent mischaracterization of employee compensation. That's what's being discussed there, I think. But the rest of that stuff hasn't come out yet, and they're saying it very well may come out. But again, we don't know yet. We don't know. But at least as of what we see now, here and now, not all that exciting or interesting or damning, in my opinion. There's a hell of a lot more there for the Trump organization. They're absolutely... Guys, you can't be in real estate in New York City in the 1980s and not have deep mafia connections. In fact, we know he does. His lawyer, I believe his name was Roy Cohn, he was the lawyer for all the top mafia guys as well. There's no doubt there's worse stuff than this going on. Zero doubt. There's been reporting on worse stuff that they've done. One of the things that I tell you guys all the time is he inflates the values of his assets, when it suits his purpose, when he's trying to talk about how much he's worth, right? But then he'll turn around and say that his assets or his property or whatever, it's worth like half of what he was claiming 5 minutes ago when he wants to pay a lower tax bill. That's just one example of a million things that he's done. Never mind they do these gross accounting tricks, which are either illegal or legal in the sense that it's a giant loophole where they funnel money to different members of the family and report it as a deduction. There's real questions about how his golf courses are even viable, because every single year at all of his golf courses, he hemorrhages money. He loses millions all the time, but they're still open. How is that possible? Is he just operating at a loss every single year? And of course, the speculation is that's not really what they're all about, that perhaps there's some kind of money laundering going on and it's funded in other ways. Now that one's just speculation, but I have seen pretty convincing reporting on a lot of these things, and the difficulty is, of course, you have to prove it in court beyond a reasonable doubt, and you need evidence to build the case. But is anybody really surprised that this guy is scheming? I mean, we already know he had to pay out for Trump University because, it was a fraud. And so he had to pay millions out for that. He called it a university. Legally, he's not allowed to call it a university. You promised certain things, didn't deliver on those things, and it was, I believe, what was it called? It was not a pyramid scheme. I forget the term that they use, but it involves upselling. Like you buy something, and then every time you buy something, they say, well, then you got to get this other thing. And you upsell. You get this like bullshit degree, and it was a fraudulent practice is what it was. So are we really surprised that this guy had other things that were like that? Remember, another great example. Remember at the end of the election, when he lost, Trump and all of his people were sending out these emails, which were telling his donor base, we're going to fight this and we're going to win. And we need you to donate to help us fight back against this. And what did they do? They put fine print at the bottom of these pitches that basically say something to the effect of, your first X number of dollars, and I think it was hundreds or thousands of dollars, that's actually going to pay off the Trump campaign debt and other things. And you have to give over a certain amount in order for any of the money to actually go towards the legal battles. And they were making promises, of course, that they couldn't keep. They lost 60 court cases, bro. They lost 60 court cases. And so, this, again, classic Trump. It's just everything is sort of misleading. Everything is sketchy at best. Haven't even discussed the fact that he took a tremendous amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars from Saudi Arabia. He took it through his hotel in D.C., and then he turned around and what did he do? Gave them a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal, sat idly by while they killed Jamal Khashoggi as they do a genocide in Yemen, vetoed us getting out of aiding the genocide in Yemen. Never mind Jared Kushner taking a tremendous amount of money from Israeli banks and doing their bidding. Listen, I'm getting a little confusing here because I'm mixing a bunch of different issues. Some of these things are political in nature only. Some of these things are, Trump business issues and business problems. But either way, my point is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's just a matter of, can you prove these various things? As of right now, like I said, the case is sort of underwhelming if this is all they got, but they very well may have more. We're just going to have to wait and see. But guys, the worst part of it is this. If Weisselberg doesn't flip, then maybe they can't really get him on anything. If Weisselberg doesn't flip, maybe they can't get him on anything. And, that might mean game, set, match, because maybe there's a reason why Weisselberg doesn't flip. Maybe the Trump people have dirt on him or something. I don't know. But this could just be the beginning. And again, I want to be clear. This is not coming from somebody who's an alarmist. You guys know all my commentary on Russiagate. Thought it was bullshit. I told you it was bullshit. And what did Mueller end up getting at the end of it? When it comes to Russia specifically, Dickie McGee's acts. Now, they did get, Manafort and others on corruption and crimes like that, and I'm glad they got him on that. But that had nothing to do with Russia. And so when I thought a claim was bullshit, I said it was bullshit. Here's an instance where I think they probably have real dirt. It's just a matter of, is it airtight enough to take the former president down in court? And they probably it's a tough mountain to climb, man, but they're working on it. It's yet to be seen whether or not they'll get it done, but I do think he's very likely guilty of a lot of the things that they're looking into.